Welcome to you all. Welcome to this live webinar by Canam and I Apply. My name is Ganga Dandapani and I'm Senior Vice President Marketing at Canam and your host today. This indeed is a great opportunity for us all to listen to the IRCC officials about study permit processing during the COVID-19 pandemic, travel restrictions, exemptions, and new policy for international students. A short introduction about Canam. We at Canam are pioneers in career counseling for students headed to Canada for the past 24 years, which is almost a quarter century. Please do listen to the videos on our website to hear what top universities and colleges have to say about Canam counselors and services. They also speak a lot about their programs and the eligibility criteria and the flexibilities that they're offering during the COVID-19 situation. Canam has been very special to Canada and has been a leader in promoting Canadian education. Unauthorized Sandhu, our CEO, is an ICCRC member, Immigration Consultants of Canada Regulatory Council, which means that we are Canadian government licensed consultants for visa processes. Now, as a student, when you're looking for studying in Canada, you need to go through an ICCRC member, a licensed immigration consultant, not only for your study permit, but also since most students looking for study in Canada do have an objective to be able to apply for permanent residency after they finish studying in Canada and gaining some Canadian work experience. So when you're looking at permanent residency, you need to know how exactly you need to apply, how would you qualify, what are the locations that help you, what kind of provincial nominee programs are there, what are the special international student routes for that, and what kind of points do you get for various qualifications. Now, all of that can only be given to you through licensed immigration consultants. And consultants across India can hardly claim this kind of a combination of pioneering experience with licensing while promoting Canadian education, Canadian careers, and pathways to Canadian permanent residency. So our advice to you is please do not seek visa assistance or PR guidance from unlicensed agents. Canam is one of the largest overseas education consulting companies with a network of offices in over 30 locations across India and in Toronto, Canada. We assist over 85,000 students and professionals each year to apply to university and college admissions around the world. Even this year during the pandemic, we've managed to conduct about 75 live webinars with Q&A sessions and shot about 150 plus videos of various universities and colleges from around the world. And we've managed to connect to about 75,000 students through all these events. It's been a great year, and we've had a great support from all our partner universities and colleges, as well as students and parents from India. Our free services include career counseling, admission services, getting application fee waivers where possible, visa guidance, providing scholarship options, and interview preparation where it's needed. Sometimes for admissions also you need to have some kind of an interview. And for our latest updates, videos, and webinars, do visit us at www.canamgroup.com and also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for the latest updates. And now for the outstanding innovation at Canam this year, the knowledge-based artificial intelligence platform to help students. Introducing iApply at Canam, I invite founder of iApply, Ravin, to say a few words.
Thank you very much for the very kind introduction. I would like to start off by, wishing a very warm welcome to the officials from the High Commission of Canada. It is very nice to meet you guys, especially, at the very least virtually. Keeping in mind the students who are unable to commute to our offices, we at Canam have been consistently experimenting with technology over the last 2 years. Figuring out ways to improve students' experience as well as enhance customer satisfaction as well. iApply is a lot of things, but for the most part, iApply is an AI-powered multiple application management system which allows students to make and manage multiple applications to several institutes and programs from the click of a button. iApply is also a huge database of a lot of information. So iApply has access to over 10,000 programs, as well as 200 institutes across Canada, each of them listed in great detail so that students are always making an informed decision about their career as well as their academic future. This can obviously be an overwhelming amount of information for students to navigate through. So iApply is also equipped with an extensive range of filters so that students are able to narrow down through the programs based on factors that are important to them. So as a student, perhaps the province is very important to you, or perhaps you want to filter programs based on your discipline or the specialization you want to pursue, or the intakes that you want to go for. Maybe you want to filter programs based on the tuition fees range. So all of these factors can be taken into consideration when you're narrowing down the 10,000 programs on iApply to finally come across the one that perhaps is your top preference as well. The AI feature in iApply also allows students to track their applications in real time. So, perhaps you're very curious as to what stage of the process is your application in. Has your offer letter been received? Has your tuition fees been paid yet? Perhaps what stage of the process is your visa in? So, all of this can be monitored online on iApply using it very much on your phones as well. iApply also has a search by eligibility feature. So, students can check their eligibility against every single of the 10,000 programs based on their academic background. The important thing here to keep into consideration is that this is being done so that students are always making applications to programs that they're eligible for. I would also say that at the very least, like even though iApply in itself as technology is sufficient enough to facilitate applications, iApply is also equipped with an expert team of academic counselors. We've always done this because we understand that, no matter how much technology advances, it is always important to be working very closely with our, students so that we're always delivering custom-made solutions to them. So anyways, if you guys are able to commute to our offices, there is absolutely nothing like it. But for those who are unable to commute to our offices, log on to www.iapply.io and you can now have Canam on your phones. I would also like to say that registration and usage on iApply is absolutely free of cost. So there's no concerns there as well. And our toll-free number is mentioned below. It's 1-800-890-1775. Okay, I guess that sums it up, and we'll continue ahead with the presentation now.
Today's guests are the star speakers, IRCC officials from the High Commission of Canada and India, Anindita Burgohain, Outreach Officer, IRCC Delhi, Shikhir Gupta, Outreach Officer, IRCC Chandigarh. And after this presentation, we will have your questions being answered by Ms. Jackie McLean, who's the Client Service Unit Manager, IRCC. You can please continue to post your questions now and make sure that you post your questions to Canam admin along with your WhatsApp number, your email address, and the city that you're located in, and your questions will be handled one by one. The faster you ask your questions, the earlier your questions will be answered. Thank you. And over to Shikhir Gupta.
A very good evening, everyone. And thanks, Canam, for having us today on your webinar. My name is Shikhir, and I'm the Outreach Officer at IRCC Chandigarh. We are very pleased to announce that as of October 20th, there will be more international students who are exempt from travel restrictions. As Canada looks at ways to safely bring in more international students, we wanted to also give you the opportunity to get updated information and ask your questions. Before we begin, please note that the contents of this webinar are valid only as of today. For the most current information on IRCC processes and travel restrictions to Canada, please visit our website, www.canada.ca/immigration. Some of the information from today's presentation will be the same as our previous webinars. We are hoping that some new people may have joined the webinar today to further understand the benefits of choosing Canada as a study destination. So moving on to the next slide. We know that international students make significant cultural and social contributions to Canada. Since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, IRCC has implemented a number of temporary measures to support and reassure international students about the study permit process. Today, we will let you know what those measures are by covering topics such as exemptions on those travel restrictions, processing changes due to COVID-19, a two-step review process, authorized leave during studies, impact on the postgraduate work permit or the PGWP program, as well as the recently announced DLI list. We will also cover important points such as who can represent you in your immigration application and what you need to know before traveling to Canada. We will end the presentation with a Q&A session. Please send us your questions and we'll answer them after the presentation. So for those of you who are considering studying in Canada, we want you to know what Canada has to offer should you choose to study at a Canadian institution. So why choose Canada? First is that many Canadian universities are highly ranked in reputed international standings. Canadian college and university diplomas are recognized around the world, and the Canadian education system encourages cross-disciplinary studies to develop transferable skills such as critical thinking, teamwork, and communications. Second is that Canada is affordable and boasts of a great quality of life with low cost of living. For example, housing, transportation, tuition is lower in Canada than many other countries, including the US, France, and the UK. Canada is also one of the safest countries in the world with a very low crime rate. Canada is one of the most ethically and linguistically diverse countries in the world, with over 50% of the population not speaking English as their first language. Last but not the least, if you would like to look at living in Canada after your studies, IRCC offers a postgraduate work permit to students who have obtained a diploma from a post-secondary school in Canada and are looking to gain work experience. This is an excellent way to continue to live in Canada while diversifying and developing your professional skills. Now that you are seriously looking at choosing to study in Canada, or you have already done so, you need to understand that currently many people cannot travel. However, nationally, we are seeing positive changes from actions put in place to stop the spread of COVID-19. We are taking precautions just like India by ensuring there is more physical distancing, mandatory mask wearing, and promoting good hygiene practices. Canada is working to slow down the spread of new cases by cautiously starting to allow more people to enter Canada. Moving on. So this brings us to the new announcement as of October 20th. Canada is now allowing students to enter Canada who are destined to designated learning institutions, also known as DLIs, which have an approved COVID-19 readiness plan, which is approved by the provincial or territorial government. As a part of the DLI's approved readiness plan, they are expected to provide, number one, information to international students on health and travel requirements before they arrive in Canada. Number two, help students with their quarantine plans and provide guidance or assistance in acquiring the necessities of life, such as food and medication during their quarantine. And thirdly, have a readiness plan to establish protocols for the health of students in the event there are suspected or confirmed COVID-19 cases at the school. The list of DLIs with an approved COVID readiness plan is now posted on IRCC's webpage for international students affected by COVID-19 restrictions and updated regularly as provinces and territories identify additional schools. This change to travel restrictions affects all international students, regardless of where they're traveling from or when their study permit was approved. Travelers should not make any travel plans until they have met all requirements and received all necessary authorizations. With the amended travel restrictions, immediate family members may be able to accompany an international student to Canada if their reason for travel is non-optional or non-discretionary, such as getting established in Canada in support of the student's study program. This could include a spouse or a common law partner or a dependent. Accompanying family member of a student do require a letter of authorization to travel, and must obtain that by writing to IRCC COVID-19 exemption mailbox, which you can see on the screen. When writing to this mailbox, the applicant must explain why they feel they are exempted from travel restrictions. So moving further, through this slide, we want you to be clear that students who were approved before or after March 18th will now be allowed to travel to Canada, provided their DLI is on the list of schools with an approved COVID readiness plan. Their travel is considered essential. Please note that the March 18th important date was only applicable prior to October 20th, but is no longer relevant. If your study permit is to attend a school which is not listed on the DLI approved list, your visa will be deactivated. This means that you cannot travel to Canada at this time, as you will receive a no boarding message from the airline. Moving further, we are aware of many service disruptions that are causing delays in the processing of your application. All applications received between now and January 31st, 2021 must be submitted online. This allows us to continually process applications across our network through work sharing of this caseload until operations normalize. We know that panel physicians are operating with less capacity. This means that it may take longer for you to obtain an appointment to complete your immigration medical exam. We also know that some schools and businesses remain closed or are operating at limited capacity. This means that it may take longer for you to obtain the supporting documents you need for your application. All of that being said, please be assured that we will not refuse any applications for non-compliance or failure to submit the requested documents at this time. This means you do not have to worry about the deadline specified in the request letters sent to you. However, note that we will not be able to complete the processing of your application until all required and requested documents have been received. So it is in your favor to submit these documents to us as soon as possible. On the IRCC website, we normally publish processing times for each of our missions for all our lines of business. As we are prioritizing applications for people who are exempt from the travel restrictions, these processing times are no longer accurate. We're gradually bringing back many of our staff while adhering to physical distancing within the office. That being said, please continue to expect delays in responding to inquiries and uploading documents to your application manually. If you need to update your application or submit a document, please use your MyCIC account to send us this information. This will automatically upload your documents and information to your application without causing any delay. Additionally, to increase efficiency, please only send one inquiry and wait for a response. Sending the same inquiry multiple times uses up more of our already limited resources, which could instead be used to process more cases. So moving on to the updates on visa application centers, we know that at this time, VACs remain closed. This means that there is no mechanism to submit biometrics at this time. However, we have started a two-way courier fee of rupees 532 each way. We know that people are very anxious to obtain the visas. However, if you send your passport when it has not been requested, it will be returned to you unprocessed and at your own cost. Additionally, we may not be able to arrange for the return of your passport immediately, so be prepared for delays. We do not send requests for instructions. IRCC will send instructions to you via email provided in your application. So please do not send requests for instructions. IRCC will send instructions to you via the email provided in your application. Additionally, we will post instructions on our Facebook page and the India WAC website when it is open for everyone to submit their passport. We will prioritize processing based on the changes to travel restrictions. Applications destined to DLIs on the approved provinces and territories list will be prioritized for processing and will receive a final decision on their application if all required documents have been submitted. This means if your application is approved, you will be issued a visa so you can travel to Canada under the exemptions to the current travel restrictions. If your DLI is not on the approved provinces or territory list, we will only finalize applications which result in a refusal. If you meet eligibility requirements, your application will not be approved for a visa until travel restrictions are further amended or lifted. So moving further, we still have cases that are awaiting approval in principle or AIP of their application. If you have decided to defer your studies or if you have switched institutions, please let us know immediately using your MyCIC account or web form if you don't have an online account set up. The AIP process was only for applications received prior to September 15th, 2020 for programs starting in 2020. For all applications received after September 15th or any application received at any time for programs starting in 2021 or later, your application will follow the regular process, meaning that you will only find out about approval of your application once all steps are completed. This means that these cases will not receive an AIP letter. Only refusals will be finalized even if they are missing biometrics and medicals or either of them. AIP or approval in principle are the same criteria which will be used to assess eligibility of applications who do not qualify for the two-stage or AIP process. Here they are. First is that you're a genuine student. This means that you've demonstrated the academic and language capability through the submission of your previous academic transcripts and language tests, and that you're able and qualified to have received. Fourth is to provide a receipt for a GIC of 10,000 Canadian dollars. Fifth is to submit your most recent secondary or post-secondary school transcripts. And for Quebec-bound students, you need a CAQ. For the non-SDS stream, these are the mandatory documents for the eligibility decision. First is to submit a valid letter of acceptance. Second is to provide IELTS, TOEFL, or PTE results. Please note that no online language test results will be accepted by IRCC. Third is that you need to show liquid funds to pay for tuition, living expenses, transportation for the first year of school, plus an explanation and evidence of how you intend to pay for all of the remaining subsequent years of school without relying on working in Canada. Fourth, you must submit your most recent secondary or post-secondary school transcripts. And last but not the least, you need a CAQ for Quebec-bound students. Additionally, we recommend that you submit a statement of purpose. Please note that if you're unable to submit a required document, for example, upfront medicals, your application will be moved to the non-SDS stream. So now can I have the next slide, please? Next slide, please. So admissibility assessments will only be made if you pass the eligibility assessment. Otherwise, your application will be refused if you fail eligibility. You must, for this, provide biometrics, complete your immigration medical exam, answer all questions truthfully and completely. This includes declaring all previous visa refusals for all countries, providing all of your background history for the last 10 years, and being truthful about any previous arrests and criminal history. Please also note that you must submit authentic documents only. Even if you meet all of the admissibility assessment requirements, only students destined to schools on the approved DLI list will be finalized and issued visas. For all other applications where admissibility requirements are met and the students are destined to a school not on the approved list, their application will be on hold until their school is added to the DLI approved list, the travel restrictions are amended to extend to them, or the travel restrictions are lifted. For all applications which do not meet either eligibility or admissibility requirements or both, they will be immediately refused. Moving on. So you must comply with your study permit conditions if your in-class courses are temporarily moved to an online format or suspended completely because of COVID-19. To do this, you must stay enrolled in your DLI and participate in your studies online if your DLI offers them. If your DLI closes permanently due to COVID-19, you have 150 days to enroll in a study program at a new DLI, change your status to worker or visitor, or leave Canada. So moving on from here, many of you will have questions about working in Canada and how the current changes may affect your opportunity to be employed. So why is the PGWP or the postgraduate work permit important for many students? Work experience provides a better opportunity to gain the language skills and work experience required to apply for permanent resident status in Canada. In addition, Canada has some of the highest salary for workers. Furthermore, persons with Canadian work experience are often able to demonstrate that they have the skills, knowledge, and critical thinking required to do the job. It is worth noting that you can obtain up to a 3-year PGWP. This all depends on the length of your eligible studies. You can also complete more than one program and combine their length towards your PGWP if each program is PGWP eligible and is at least 8 months in length. Moving further, new measures have been introduced with respect to the PGWP. You should know this information prior to entering Canada, so you're aware of the rules. If you are unable to travel to Canada at this time due to travel restrictions, your eligible online studies will count towards your PGWP if you already have a study permit, or you have been approved for a study permit, or you applied for a study permit before beginning your program in either 2020 or winter 2021. For those who applied before September 15th for a 2020 start date, we know that some of you are still awaiting your AIP. We are working hard to process these applications. Please make sure your application is complete or it will cause further delays. This may be a little difficult to understand, so please listen carefully. IRCC wanted to provide maximum flexibility for students to be able to obtain their PGWP if they have genuinely studied at a Canadian institution either in or outside Canada. If you fall in any of the situations listed above, you can complete up to 100% of your program online while outside of Canada if your program is between 8 and 12 months in length and you started your program of study between May and September 2020. This essentially means that taking an entire 1-year program online outside of Canada may qualify the entire program for a PGWP. In addition, you can complete up to 50% of one program online up until April 30, 2021, while outside Canada, if you will also eventually complete at least 50% of your program in Canada. Furthermore, you can complete up to 50% of 2 programs online up until April 30, 2021, while outside Canada, if you graduate from 2 different programs within 2 years of each other, and each program is at least 8 months in length, and at least one of the programs started between May and September 2020, and at least 50% of the combined programs is completed in Canada. This means that you could potentially complete a 1-year program outside of Canada and then take another 1-year program in Canada, and both programs will give you the maximum allowable time towards your PGWP. So this section applies to students who are already in Canada. Essentially, if a student switched to part-time studies or had to take a break in studies, for example, the spring-summer semester may have been cancelled due to the pandemic, they may still continue to work on and off campus, provided that they were previously a full-time student and already authorized to work on or off campus pre-pandemic. For off-campus work, the maximum limit is still 20 hours per week during the academic session and full-time during regular academic breaks. School closure, part-time studies, or semester cancellations due to COVID-19 do not count as regularly scheduled academic breaks. So moving further, If you decide to study and work in Canada, you may then decide to make Canada your permanent home. To begin the process of applying for permanent residence, you must submit your profile in the Express Entry online system. This will show you how many comprehensive ranking system points do you have based on your education, work experience, language ability, and some other factors. On a regular basis, IRCC invites the candidates with the most points in the Express Entry pool to apply for permanent residence through one of the federal economic immigration programs. Moving further, having a plan to quarantine is a very important piece to travel restrictions being relaxed for international students. Please make sure that you follow the quarantine plan. Not doing so could end up costing you or otherwise affect others with COVID-19, as well as can lead to imprisonment, removal from Canada, a fine of up to 750,000 Canadian dollars. For more information on quarantine, please consult the Public Health Agency of Canada. Moving further. So to this slide, we want to inform you of various fraud activities and misinformations related to immigration applications. We strongly advise you to scan the QR code on the screen for more information. So first is to protect yourself. We always say that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. You should never share your personal information with unauthorized strangers. Second are fraudulent websites and scams. Certain websites may claim to be official Government of Canada websites. However, they do this to trick people into paying money to them. Then there are email scams. Please note that IRCC will never send you an email from a private address, for example, from Hotmail or Gmail. IRCC addresses always end in .gc.ca or canada.ca. Then there are telephone scams, which you must protect yourself from. Please note that IRCC will never ask you for any sort of payment by telephone. Fifth are unauthorized agents. You do not have to use a consultant to submit an application. However, if you choose to use one, please ensure that your representative is legally authorized to represent you, and you can do this at www.canada.ca/immigration-representative. Examples of authorized agents include members of law societies in Canada, members of Chambre de Notaire in Quebec, and members of ICCRC, which is a regulatory body for immigration consultants in Canada. An authorized representative can provide you with the valuable tips to avoid paying too much money for an immigration service, as well as what you can expect. Any paid representative must be an authorized representative. Unpaid representatives could be family members or a trusted friend. So on this slide, you can see the many ways to connect with us and to find more information. You have the IRCC website, the website of the High Commission of Canada, and our social media handles for Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, where you can find a lot of additional information. Please make sure to follow us on social media for updates regarding the WAC two-way courier service and additions to the DLI COVID-19 Readiness Plan approved list. So this brings us to the end of our presentation. I would now request Anandita and Jackie to take over with your questions.
Thank you so much, Shikhar. That was great. In fact, we had more than 1,000 students wanting to join in, and a large number of them had to be prevented from joining in because we only had 1,000 slots, and they were all requesting us, can we have another webinar again? But anyways, thank you so much for such a detailed presentation and helping us all out. Now, I will request Jackie to take on the questions. Anandita has been posting the questions to me. So can I start the questions, please?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. So the first question is, if our institution is not there in the DLI list, then what will be the procedure?
So if your institution is not on the DLI list, it will depend on whether or not you applied prior to September 15th or after September 15th. So prior to September 15th, you will receive your approval in principle, regardless if your DLI is on the list or not, but you will not receive your the second stage processing until your DLI is on the list. If you've applied after September 15th, it will be quote unquote regular processing. But those on the DLI list will be prioritized as they are. Those folks would be exempt from the travel restrictions.
Okay. The next question is, will January 2021 intake students be allowed to travel to Canada?
The changes that took place today, October 20th, unless they change otherwise up until that date, it will be any student that has their visa, their study permit or letter of introduction, and is on, and their DLI is on the approved list, can travel to Canada.
Okay. Question 3, I have received an AIP for January 2021 intake on September 2020. My biometrics are also given along with the medicals. Do I need to upload them again along with my January 2021 intake LOA?
Okay, so if you received approval in principle for your January 2021 intake, that's probably because you received approval for your September 2020 intake. We did not give approval in principles for January 2021 intake. So perhaps you, after you received approval in principle, deferred your studies. So maybe perhaps I could just ask you to repeat that question again.
Okay. This question is, I have received AIP for January 2021 intake on September 4th. And my biometrics are also given along with my medicals. So do I need to upload again the January intake LOA?
So I would suggest that you did not receive your approval in principle for that January intake. You received it for an earlier intake. So absolutely, you should make sure that you indicate that your studies has been deferred and that you will be entering, starting your studies in January, so that the immigration is well aware that you've deferred your studies.
Okay. Next is, my course starts in January 2021, but it is starting online. I want to start my course online and then travel when things are better. If AIP is not applicable anymore, then how can I start my classes online?
Okay, so approval in principle was for folks to start their study in September because we knew that a lot of the institutions were closed at that point in time. And even if you were to travel to Canada, it would mean that you would still have to study online. So currently, the plan is for 2021, hopefully more institutions will actually be open in a way that it would make more sense for students to travel to Canada. So if you are not comfortable traveling at that point in time, you can start your studies online. However, that's completely up to you. You can do that regardless if you have a study permit or not. However, if you do want the time to count towards your postgraduate work permit, then you have to follow the instructions regarding how much of that time can be done online and not online.
Okay. Next question is, when will the VACs be open in India? I've got the biometrics letter. What is the next process?
I absolutely knew that this question was going to be asked. I can see it being asked very, very often on social media. And what I would like to state is that we're very glad that many of our officers have now returned to mission. It did take some time as many of us were evacuated. So what we've decided so that we can start in an organized way is to allow those folks that have already received approval to submit their passports. Then we are going to move to the next stage, which is issuing approval letters for those folks that can travel to Canada. And then the last stage or last phase will be to reopen the VAC so that people can complete their biometrics. So I know people are very anxious for the VACs to reopen, and I fully understand that. But I can tell you that if we don't do it in phases, we will just be overwhelmed and people will not be able to move any faster anyway. So it is absolutely critical that we do this in phases so that we can manage the workload.
Next question: if I have attended IELTS in is online IELTS accepted?
So any online language testing at this point in time is not accepted. It is being reviewed to see, especially in the new age of COVID. But you have to realize that a lot of times that people will have people stand in for them. It hasn't been the technology hasn't been tested to make sure that people can do that, and we're positive that we can get a reading from that person. So once that has been perfected, definitely we'll be looking at that in the future.
Okay, and the next question is, while studying online from my home country, can I work full-time, 40 hours?
Work as much as you want. But what I would tell you is the same thing that I would tell my own children: make sure that you put your studies first. It's very important that, it can be very difficult studying online. So it might take the extra effort. So don't count on the fact that you can work 40 hours and complete a full-time caseload. Please make studying your priority. But we do not, immigration does not, IRCC does not have any restrictions on you working in India. You can work in India as much as you like.
Okay, the next question is, if the program is online, can we travel to Canada and attend the classes? If yes, please provide clear details and procedures about that.
Okay, so can I attend the class on, sorry, maybe I can just get you repeat that again.
Do you want me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
Okay, if the program is online, can we travel to Canada and attend classes? If yes, please provide clear details and procedures about that.
Okay, for sure.
They want to study online in Canada. Is it possible to study online in Canada? That's what they're asking.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I really want to stress during this presentation, and thank you to Shakir, who did an excellent job presenting, but you have to, we had a lot of guidance as far as what was essential prior to October 20th. And now we're asking people, please remove that and don't think about, is it online? What about my Wi-Fi? All of that guidance was prior to October 20th. What we really want to state to date is it is absolutely dependent on whether or not your designated learning institution is on that list. If it is on the list, regardless if your studies are online, you will be considered to have essential travel and you can travel to Canada.
Okay. So next is, I'm planning for studying abroad for the November slot, November 2021. When should I start my admission or the registration process for the same?
Wow, what a keener. So I would say that you do have some time. I always used to say, apply as far as advanced as possible. But given we have different processes that are coming into play depending on when you're seeking admission, my recommendation would be perhaps wait until after we're over this transition of how we're applying rules because of COVID-19. And once we've, come to, that, hopefully all DLIs will have a COVID readiness plan in place. Hopefully all students going to all DLIs will be able to enter Canada. And once that happens, then I would suggest that you apply for your visa.
Okay, next is, what about students who already have their AIP done with medical and PCC? Only biometrics are left?
So if the biometrics are left, you will have to wait until the visa application centers reopen.
Okay. One of the questions also is that how long is the medicals valid?
So the medical, unlike permanent residency, that is valid for 12 months, if you have applied for a student visa and your medicals have expired, as long as your visa is still valid, you do not have to renew your medicals.
Okay, thank you. Next question. I've received an AIP after 2 refusals before. What are my chances to receive the study permit?
Oh gosh. So I don't know why you previously obviously received refusals, but if it was due to some type of inadmissibility, then chances are that will happen at the stage 2. So they obviously believe that you're a genuine student, genuinely have funds that you can travel to Canada. But if your inadmissibility was because of misrepresentation, criminal history, something like that, then at stage 2, it could be likely that you would be refused again. If you were refused because of eligibility, which is usually why people are refused, then I would say if you have that, then that's very good news and likely stage 2 will be approved.
Okay. So the next question is, I've submitted a complete file, but my medical is going to, yeah, I think it's the same question, similar, but my medical is going to...
Can I just add to that though? Because I do want to indicate that your medical has to be valid at the time that we review the application. So if it is about to expire, if you're like that other student that's applied, a year before their studies, do make sure that your medical is valid at the time that the officer is going to be reviewing your application.
Okay. All right. I've got my AIP and I want to know the next process for stage 2.
So stage 2 processing, again, will happen for those applicants that applied before September 15th. And we will be looking at those to finalize those applications, provided you have biometrics, medical, and a complete application. And so we will be looking and pulling those based on the approved DLIs to expedite those ones first for visa issuance. If you're not attending a school that it's on the approved DLI list, then we will have to wait until your DLI is on that list before we'll look at the second stage.
Okay, next question is, can my spouse travel with me to Canada if I decide to travel within this year by December 2020?
That depends on whether or not your spouse is just going there to stay temporarily or if your spouse is going to stay there permanently. If your spouse is going to stay there temporarily, chances are you will not get an authorization letter because they will consider that as non-essential. However, if your spouse is going there to stay with you to settle in Canada, I would suggest that you ask for authorization by submitting a request using the email address provided on one of the slides earlier. It's also on our website, and indicate the visa application number and information regarding why travel is essential, basically that they are going to be staying with you permanently. And in that way, it is very likely that they would consider that travel as essential. But you will need both the authorization letter, visa, and a valid passport.
Okay. Now question 15, do I need any additional documentation from my DLI if I decide to travel to Canada now?
So provided you do require your letter of acceptance to provide to the airlines will be provided with the information regarding who is exempt from the travel restrictions. The other thing that I really want to indicate in this presentation is if, there might be people that are very desperate to get to Canada and thinking, oh, I'll just show my letter from a DLI that is authorized, and then that way I can get to Canada. Do not do that, because your visa has been deactivated and you will get a no board message. So it is only the folks that have a DLI on the approved list that will now have an activated visa that can travel to Canada, but do bring that letter with you.
There was one more question which one of the students asked was, what is a port of entry letter?
So a port of entry letter is a letter that indicates your visa is issued and that you will obtain your study permit at the port of entry. So basically you don't get your study permit, work permit until you enter Canada. The last line is when you enter Canada to receive that visa. So basically the port of entry letter indicates that please show this to the Customs CBSA officer, Canada Border Services officer, when you enter Canada. It is not necessarily a requirement. The most important thing is your visa and that you get the board message. Okay. I know that it indicates that very clearly in the instructions to bring your port of entry letter. However, if you don't have it, I would suggest that the airlines, of course, it's up to the airline, but the airline will probably allow you to board, considering that letter is just that. It's a letter. It's not a visa. It's just states that your study permit will be issued to you once you enter Canada.
Okay. The next question is it necessary to quarantine in a hotel, or can I quarantine myself at my residence?
So very good question. The reason why we decided to come up with the list designating DLIs was for this reason. And we were very worried that students would go to Canada, that they would live with lots of other students, because that's what students usually do, myself included when I went to university, and that this could easily spread COVID. So that is something that you're going to have to work with your designated learning institute to make sure that wherever you're quarantining, it could be a hotel, it could be a residence, but the most important thing is if you're quarantining with somebody else, they're quarantining with you.
Yeah. Okay. So what do we do when our postgraduate work permit is expiring? Are we supposed to resign from our job and get back to India?
That really is a case-by-case situation. So it depends on what your ultimate goal is. So if you're applying for permanent residence, I would suggest that you do that prior to your postgraduate work permit expiring so that you can transition to that. It would depend on whether or not you're going to continue your studies after your postgraduate work permit, in which case you should be applying for your study permit. So it's kind of an open-ended question, which I can't really answer because it depends on the situation. Whatever you do, don't go out of status.
Okay, so VSCs are closed. Will my application be rejected if I fail to provide biometrics because of this?
Absolutely not. We're well aware that the visa application centers are closed. You do not require a new biometrics letter. It's automatically extended, and once the visa application centers reopen, we have a lot of people that require biometrics, so it might take some time. So even after the VACs open, we understand that appointments will be difficult to get. So it will be extended with all of that knowledge involved.
Okay. Next, can we give biometrics in another country and submit passport in India?
You can give your biometrics in another country, and people have. You can submit your passport request letter in India once it's open to everyone. Again, we are doing this in phases. And the first phase is just people that have received the visa instruction letter on the courier. Once we've opened it and anybody can submit their passport after they obtain the passport request letter, then absolutely you can submit it in India. If you are traveling to another country to get your biometrics completed, I would suggest that at that same time, after you complete it, wait and see whether or not you can get approval and submit through that VAC.
What if we test positive for COVID-19 at a Canadian airport during the health checkup?
So the COVID-19, I don't believe this isn't necessarily an immigration question, but having just returned to India, I think I have some knowledge. And they're not, as far as I know at this time, they're not doing testing at the airport. That's why it's really important to do the quarantine. So in case you are COVID positive at the time of arrival, you're quarantining and you're working with your DLI to say, I'm not feeling well, or I need testing or whatnot.
Okay. Can we change our program after we get an AIP? Will it have an effect on the visa result?
So you can at any time change your program, but you have to realize that when you were given approval in principle, it was based on that study plan. If you change it, then the visa officer will look to see, does this make sense? And it can be reviewed again.
So maybe a letter of explanation can be given along with that?
Absolutely. Provide your letter of explanation as to why you're changing.
All right. When will I get the second stage approval update? How is the stamping going to be done?
So you will get your second stage approval update after when we process applications for DLIs that have been designated.
Okay, is there any way to check if the AIP received is a genuine one or not? This is one question a lot of students are asking. Please tell us.
Yes. So, and we've had a lot of discussion.
In fact, I will just add one more thing. Some people are saying that if you receive the AIP through an email, it could be a fraud, and if it's on the portal, then it's genuine. Please help us get rid of all these uncertainties.
Okay, so I'll give you some back history with this, and that's that in our system, it's set to send the same standard passport request letter. In order to give approval in principle, we would have had to make changes to our system, including like shutting it down, making sure that we add the letter. So rather than do that, it was decided that approval in principle could be sent via email and basically the letter attached via the email. So a lot of times that's how it was done. They are in the process of updating the MyCIC accounts to show that correspondence has been sent. But we were actually going to post what email you should look for to make sure that it's sent from the correct address. What we are seeing, though, unfortunately, is a lot of people are copying our email address. They're paying for the IP address, and what they're doing is it looks like it's coming from our email address when it actually isn't. So the only tip that I can give you from that is if you're seeing the IRCC address, and what I can commit to do is we will put this in one of our frequently asked questions and we will send it to you so that you have the email address in our frequently asked questions. But a tip is whatever email program you're using, whether it's Gmail, Outlook, Hotmail, figure out how to expand those headers. Because if you expand the headers, which can be kind of technical and tricky, you'll see whether or not it's being sent from an email address that looks like ours, but isn't ours. So what I'll do is commit to sending it to Canam to make sure that you can do that little test to make sure that it's coming from an IRCC email address.
Okay. The next question is, I have GIC and paid only first semester fees, not a one-year fees. So can I apply through STS or would it be general?
So I believe SDS requires you to have the GIC and tuition paid for 1 year. So if you don't meet all the requirements of SDS, you'll automatically be moved to the other stream.
And but that leads me to another question, Jackie. Because the biometrics are not submitted right now, so will it still be considered under STS or general?
Biometric is not required for STS, if I recall.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, the next question is, the students who are already done with biometrics and medical have as well as got AIP, will they get visa priority?
Depending on if their DLI is designated. That is really our priority, is those folks. I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but to answer the question again is yes, it depends on your DLI. Those are the ones that we will be prioritizing. Because if you can't enter Canada and you can continue to study online, then it's not necessarily as much of a hurry for us to get those ones visas printed.
So it's basically all about the DLI approval, being on the DLI COVID-19 approval list for the college. And if that is so, yes, then you will get priority, right?
Yes. And I know a lot of students, because
Okay.
I do read a lot of the tweets. I'm sure people think that we're not reading them. We do. And we do report up so that we can look at ways to fix the problems that students are indicating. And I noticed that one of them is that some people were kind of disappointed that a lot of the Ontario institutes have not received the designation. All I would state is do consult with your DLI regarding that. And they could probably tell you maybe at what stage it's at.
Okay. The VACs have started a two-way courier service. If I have already received a passport request letter, should I just go ahead and courier my passport to VAC, or should I wait for further instructions? If yes, how do I courier it to VAC? If no kind of instructions, should I wait before I courier my passport?
So a lot of people are getting the fact that their application has been approved as their passport request letter. That is not a passport request letter. Anyone that did receive a passport request letter should have received a second message indicating how to submit their application to VFS. You have to include both of those letters.
Okay.
Do not send it to VFS, because VFS has a list and they will only mail it back to you if you're not on the list.
Under the new VAC courier service, once I've sent my passport to VAC, within how many days can I expect to receive my passport?
Because we are doing this, and this is the reason why we're doing in incremental stages, is we hope not to be able to have your passport for very long. The reason why we're doing it is so that we can do it in stages, so that we can get the passport in quickly and out quickly. So I would say likely within a week to 2 weeks. If we open it up to everyone, then I would say that you have to be prepared that we're going to have your passport for quite a while.
Okay. Okay. The next question is, do you accept IELTS General instead of IELTS Academics for the study permit?
So IELTS General, I used to know the answer to this. One of them, I believe, is online, or no?
No, they're not online. IELTS General is what is used for immigration purposes, and IELTS Academics is what is used for study.
So I think we have this question in our frequently asked questions. So we will absolutely send that to you. I believe in some applications we are actually accepting IELTS General, but don't quote me on that. I will send it in the frequently asked questions.
Okay, I've seen those tweets from IRCC which says that yes, they do accept.
Okay, so there you go.
Maybe
yes. You're probably right then, because I know at the beginning there was a question about it. Yes.
Okay. All right. So I think with that, we've come to the end of all questions, because most of them others are all repeat questions. I thank Anindita for having painstakingly filtered all the questions and given them to me. And thank you, Jackie, so much for answering all these questions with so much of patience.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say that we didn't get the instructions any earlier than today. So I do apologize. We were kind of throwing things together at the very last minute because we wanted to provide you with up-to-date information. So hopefully it's been useful, and you're kind of our test case as far as questions. To going forward when we do these more webinars, to make sure that we're answering the questions that we can for the students. So thank you for the invitation, and hopefully it worked well for students.
Yes, thank you so much. In fact, we had to stop people from coming in because they couldn't come in anymore. But yes, we will do another webinar very soon, maybe given a little bit of time, so that anything new that has to be said, we will give you a platform to address all our students. Thank you so much, Jackie.
Hey, thank you.
Shikir, and Anindita. Thank you so much. And thank you all students for having attended this webinar and patiently sat through the entire question answer session as well. And I hope all your questions were answered. Thank you.